Hi, Julie Cole. This is Laura Leslie, and this is my Freedom Practicum with Pastor Brady Daniel. And this week on March 1st, we had a pastor come in, Pastor Dale, and he talked about Gateway's on-call training. So basically, Freedom Ministries at Gateway is not just a department. They really stress equipping people for freedom training. So Dale talked about what they do with on-call training and how, every pastor, I think, is like on rotation of when they're on call. And he's like the head of the on-call department. And basically, he talked about a lot of their calls have to deal with suicide, and a lot of the people that do call, they're not really wanting to end their lives. They mainly want to live, but it's either like a deep down root that's causing them to want to commit suicide. They talked about them having a life contract. Basically, each person that they're on the phone with, they try to get them to in some way choose life and sign this contract that they cancel any plans that they have with the enemy. And usually they had a lot of success with that, people filling out a life contract. Also this week, my takeaway from him is that he said with any crisis that what they stress at Gateway is to communicate God's presence first, and to communicate their presence, and then also communicate Gateway's presence, that they have people there to back them up. And that the number one thing that he said that he wished that he would have been told or taught this in his early on-call freedom training is that he wished somebody would have told him that he's not responsible for people, that it's not his burden to bear, that he is just there to facilitate and to help as much as he can, and the rest is in God's hands. And I think that's very encouraging and helpful for us as young students to realize that and know that it's not our burden, and that to get that insight from somebody that's been in it and has been in this on call for a while. I think he said like 20 years, but that was like the biggest takeaway of him coming and speaking, is just giving us some insight. Also, we have been reading I Wish I Would Had Known, and it's from Tommy Briggs, and he's come and spoken to our class before, but mainly in chapter 4, I would say that the biggest thing that really spoke to me in his book was just how heart or head knowledge is not the same as heart knowledge. And he talks about just his struggling with his divorce and how he was saved early on, but then mistaken that heart knowledge for head knowledge, and how his divorce had made him wanting to commit suicide. But he had talked to a pastor, and a pastor had talked him out of it, and he led him to the Lord, even though he thought he knew the Lord his whole life. So one of the quotes from this book that I think was really helpful is that the great danger people in churches face today is falling into the habit of going through the routine, and the people who attend church cannot tell you the subject of the sermon 3 days later. It's because they're not receiving anything that's life-changing. And I think that is something that really spoke to me, because going through seminary and going to chapel and going to church on Sundays and you can get kind of in the routine, but then you really have to stop and think and be like, and ask God, what are you really trying to tell me each day? And not just going through the motions, but really seeking and pressing into his presence. And that's how you're going to affect people. That's going to be the number one thing that will be a part of, a person's ministry, is their presence with the Lord and how that overflows out of them into other people. So I look forward to next week, and yeah, that's it.